Today, using common household materials, I'm going to show you how to build a tripwire rat trap that fires a high-speed chopstick arrow. It's a build video. Today, building things our way. It can be used as a handheld device for eliminating household pests like blocks of foam, cardboard boxes, wooden gates, soda cans, and cups of tea. Or the tripwire can be strung across trails that are frequented by rat-shaped blocks of foam. As a heads up, and for context, as required by the YouTube overlords, nothing actually dies in this video. This is just a fun DIY project. There's not going to be any Logan Paul type shit. Unlike some of my other videos, this project is something you can actually hopefully build yourself at home, but don't actually build it because it could be dangerous. If you're going to, maybe ask a parent or like a parent-shaped block of foam. So I have a pretty bad rat problem at my place. Now you may be aware I also have a bit of a cat problem, which I've been tackling over the years with some degree of success, but I also have a rat problem. Now before you say anything, I don't have a rat problem because I got rid of the cats. They've always kind of just coexisted happily together in their rat-cat paradise. Now the cats around here basically don't give a crap about rats, or mats, or hats. They don't give a f about any of the words. None of them. Rats are an introduced species here, and they've wreaked havoc on native fauna, like birds, penguins, and those other things we have in Australia that kind of look like rats, but they're not rats. They eat all that stuff. They ruin it. They kill it. They eat the penguin eggs. It's bad. They're bad news. They are ultra clever at avoiding baits and conventional traps. Yet in my situation here, they have some pretty well established rat runs through the garden which are easy to find, which was part of the inspiration for this project as a concept. Ultimately, this rat trap will likely be too dodgy to actually use. For example, if my cat defense system taught me anything about automated traps, the first casualty will likely be myself, followed by one of my friends or family, followed by a non-target species, and then maybe a rat. Wonder how that dove's doing. But putting all of that aside, let's build this thing and have some fun. Okay, rat trap. Just a regular one for trapping rats, like a mouse trap, but bigger, and it's a rat trap. Some chopsticks. Always chopsticks. They're good for everything. If I knew how to read Chinese, I'm sure this would say good for lots of things. Need a coat hanger. Always have some in the shed, in case I want to hang some coats. And you need some rubber bands. Here's some I totally haven't strategically just put there. Some assorted ones would be good because then you've got a variety of different ones. Last thing is some craft, I think they're craft feathers, I don't know. Actually, there is one more thing. PVC pipe. I think it's 30mm. I'll put it in the voiceover. Yep, 30mm. Also, some wood. Just a long piece of wood. Once you have all your materials together, time to get building. First up, we're gonna select ourselves a rubber band. Now the type of rubber band you'll want is one that's wide and fairly long. Yeah, to be honest, I don't really know what the official rubber band international rating system is, but I guess the one I've used is about 10 centimeters unstretched and stretches out to about 40 centimeters. Okay, next up, we have to cut the PVC pipe, and we want about 40 centimeters based on this rubber band. So measure out 40 centimeters and make a cut. Now this next part can be a bit tricky. With your length of PVC, you want to cut all the way down the middle into 2 half pipes. Do what you can with a hacksaw, but you may find you need to take the blade out to go the full length of the tube. I ended up using a f***off giant size hacksaw blade that I found, which made things easier. I have no idea what type of saw it's actually from, but if you do know, maybe let me know in the comments. Once cut, the edge of your half pipe can simply be cleaned up by scraping it with the edge of a ruler or blade. Grab your rat trap and draw yourself a small hole through the catch. So yeah, I forgot to film this part, so I'm pretending to do it with my fingers. Next, with your length of timber, you'll need to saw a short piece off the end. I'm not sure how long, let's just say a piece. Lay the wood on the table and butt the short piece of wood up on the end. The PVC is used to make this adjustable later on, in case we want to change to different strength rubber bands. Place the PVC barrel about this far down the length of timber, and then make a mark about halfway down the PVC. Your rubber band should stretch about this far down the timber. Yep, that's right, we're all about accuracy today. Saw off the wood at that mark. Take the short piece of wood, Put this up against the base in an L shape, and you can chuck a couple of screws in there. Make sure they're long enough though, as this will need to be fairly strong. Hit the up key twice to flip your L block upside down. Pre-drill the rat trap so it doesn't split, and then chuck a couple more screws in there to hold it onto the support. I'm just going to double check the length of the rubber band. It should stretch from one end of the PVC, but shouldn't make it all the way to the trap. Then there's just a couple more screws to hold the PVC barrel onto the wood. Use the countersink bit and try and get the screws to sit as flat as possible so they don't snag on our chopsticks. If you don't have a countersink bit, you can always make one out of a bolt like I did once. It works pretty. With our PVC barrel all securely mounted, we can now make a place to hook on our rubber bands. To do this, we want to make 2 marks on the sides, about here and here. Then drill these out. After you drill it, make sure you smooth out the edges of the holes as best you can. Any sharp, dodgy bits are going to tear through the rubber bands. Using your hacksaw, put a slot from the end of the PVC through to the hole. This is so you'll be able to get the rubber band in there. And it's the big grand reveal shot of what we've done so far. But there's more to do. Let's go. Using a staple gun, you'll want to bung a staple in right behind the catch. Then put one in on the side on a bit of an angle, and then one more on the end of the timber. These staples are the guide for our tripwire, so make sure the edges are nice and smooth. Now find yourself an old bit of fishing line and then thread that through each of our loops. From there, you can then tie this onto the hole we made in the catch. Over, under, in and out. That's what tying a tripwire chopstick dart is all about. The rubber band we selected earlier, we can then thread through the holes on the end of the PVC. At this point, you can test whether the tripwire is going to activate the trap. You won't actually need to set the spring on the trap in the future, but we can use this for now just to put some tension on the holding bar to test it out. Cool, works sweet as. All done for that bit, now we can make some chopstick arrows. Using your coat hanger wire, cut it and bend yourself a nice straight section. Then measure and mark a point at 30mm, 20 and 25mm roughly, and cut that length of wire off. Chuck that in a vise and file one of the ends nice, round and smooth. Then clamp it up and bend it over at the first mark with a hammer to 90 degrees. Move it up in the vise and then with a screwdriver or something, jab it onto the next mark so you can make another small bend. And then you should have yourself one fine looking little hook thing. Next, we are onto the chopsticks. Pick up your chopstick and then just admire it for a bit. I'm not sure what I was doing here, but it's probably an important step. Using a sander or even a file or just the pavement, work the point down into an extra pointy point that's sharp. Point. About a quarter of the way down the chopstick, make a mark. And then find a drill bit that's the same size as your coat hanger wire and then send that through the chopstick. With the small wire hook you whipped up earlier, we can thread this through the hole in the chopstick, then secure it with some insulation tape. Looking good so far. On the other end of the chopstick, mark the end with a hook shape to use as a guide. Not too close to the end though. Using a file, you need to carefully file this section out. All good. The chopstick is weak here, so it's better we find out now. Okay, Control Z. Using a file, you need to carefully file this section out. If successful, you should have a nice little hook in the end, which will hook itself onto the rat trap's holding bar. Yeah, you get the idea. More on that later. To complete our chopstick arrow, we just need to grab a couple of craft feathers. As always, admire them for a little bit. Then we can tape a couple of these on the end of the chopstick in front of the hook. These don't make the best flight for an arrow, but it's good enough for what we're doing. We are ready to test this out, so grab your arrow and hook it onto the rubber band. Make sure the rubber band is all the way around the hook properly, otherwise you may be a little f***ed. Set the holding bar on the trap. However, this isn't the safest way to set this trap, but I didn't want to refilm it. It's best to put your thumb under the little bait catch to stop it accidentally going off. Always be ready for it to accidentally go off, because that's always going to be a possibility with this. In its final form, we'll string out the trip line and tie that off to a tent peg, But just for now, we can have the trip line going off to the side, and we can pull that manually to set it off, just for testing. Once we are ready, set, go, don't go in front of it. Maybe use something like a piece of foam, and we can give it a go. Nice. It triggers nicely and flies pretty straight for what I need. I did end up hot gluing it to the table though, because there was a little bit of recoil. Now let's tether that trip line and we can give that a go. Nice, that's perfect. I've perfected a way of making polystyrene kebabs. Yeah. Just for fun, I thought why not have a crack at making a steel tip dart, just to make the arrow more stabby. Sorry to interrupt, but before we go further, maybe check that you subscribe to my channel. By subscribing, you'll help my ability to make new and more frequent videos in the future. Okay, back to the video. To do this, we start by chopping the thin end off one of the chopsticks. Using a drill bit about the width of a nail, you have to make yourself a bore hole down the middle of the chopstick. Now take your time here, you're going to need some surgeon-like precision. As far as depth goes, just go 30mm or some shit. If you pull that off, you can now sand the tip back down almost to the edges of the hole to make it nice and pointy again. Grab a nail, chuck it in the old vise, and then hacksaw the top off. Throw a bit of PVA glue on there, and then thread it up through the chopstick. Wipe off the excess glue, and we are looking pretty good. But it can be better. Give it a bit of a file or a sand, and we can get the tip looking nice and sharp. With our nail tip dart ready, and the tripwire set, let's give it a test. Yeah, that goes pretty sweet. It's gone in quite far and split the wood slightly, and that thing is not coming out easily. Just for a bit more fun, I thought I might have a crack at using this handheld, so I've drilled a hole through the middle, but I can use as a bit of a sight to look down the barrel. Now with this, there's always a chance the dart is going to snag in the rubber band and that thing is going to come straight back at you. So anytime you're using this, wear safety glasses. Not that you're actually going to build this, because it's dangerous to build, don't build it. Now let's give this a go with one of our original wood-tipped darts, aiming at the 2020. And that's not too bad, considering it's pretty hard to see through these sights without just seeing a big bunch of feathers in there. And it's gone in really deep. Now for a test of one of the steel tip darts. The arrow's snapped, but it's brutally deposited the nail in the dartboard. But exactly where I was aiming, in the bottom black bit of the dartboard there. Okay, let's try it outside. It eliminates the polystyrene quite nicely, but in the real world a rat would have a big red target on it. That's a bit straighter. Nice. Now let's give it a go over a longer range. And the polystyrene's used some kind of force deflection. It was going nice and straight there, and at the last minute it's just veered off. Nothing to do with the aerodynamics. Lots of fun all round, but let's do a simulated test for what this was intended for, which is getting some rats. Really, you'd probably put this on the rat thoroughfare where they come through running, but this crawling pace should be enough. And bang, he's gone! Off to polystyrene rat heaven. Dead. Now, I don't know too much about rats because I'm not a radiologist, but he looks pretty happy with it. I think it's a good result. He's happy with that result as well. Seriously, don't actually set this in your yard. This is going to be your foot. And this is what happens when the rubber band snags on the arrow. It's like a harpoon.
Get over here! Wins.
It's not even a real rat, and I feel bad. But there's always other uses around the house, like getting toast out of a toaster and putting it on a plate without burning your fingers. Solved! The toast is conveniently placed on the floor, and the arrow just continues through to go about its business elsewhere. I hope you enjoyed this build. Help my channel out by subscribing, it's 100% free. Also, I ummed and ahed about this one for a long time, but I finally set myself up a Patreon account, which I've linked to in the description. So currently my channel barely earns enough to cover the cost of materials like all the chopsticks that I get through, especially with YouTube demonetizing stuff. But if you like what I do and you find value in my content, for something like the cost of a packet of screws, you can help support the growth of this channel. Not the cost of a screw, that's more expensive, but not out of the question. But thank you to you guys, my subscribers, for your support so far. I look forward to making more videos for you, and I will catch you next time. Looks alright from this end.